Hello again, college football fans. It's finally time to talk about the college football playoff semifinal games. It seems like it's been a year since the SEC championship game, but we're a day before New Year's Eve when this will take place. Just a quick mention, didn't we try doing this on New Year's Eve several years ago? The semifinal games, and they got bad ratings and nobody really liked it. And then they haven't done it until this year again on New Year's Eve, so be on the lookout for that. See how the ratings and the the reception from all of the fans are this year. That being said, the College Football Playoff Committee has maintained their entire existence that they want the four best teams at the end of the year in the College Football Playoff. Now, I've never really agreed with that criteria because of the ambiguity of it, and I always feel like there should be some defined parameters that have to be met. Now, that is not what they say, but I do think that behind closed doors, and they may not even say it out loud to each other, but I do think that, some of these unspoken parameters have to be met. I mean, we've not seen a one-loss conference championship at a Major 5 conference not go. We've not seen a team with 2 losses go. So obviously there are some parameters that have been set, maybe not in stone and maybe not have been said out loud, but they're there in everyone's mind. So I believe that they choose who they think are the most deserving teams as opposed to who they think are the best teams. And I think that this year is a perfect example of that with Cincinnati, because no one can really think that Cincinnati is a better chance or has a better chance than Ohio State or Baylor or even Oklahoma or somebody like that against this Alabama team. I mean, let's be serious. I know that we've heard a lot about it's a good matchup, and the talking heads around the nation are always going to say that because most of them are ESPN guys. So they have this game, so they want good ratings, and they're not, what are they going to do? Go out and tell everybody, Cincinnati really has no shot in this major, big, huge game that we have here, one of the 3 biggest games towards the end of the season that determine the whole ball of wax. They're not going to say that to you. They're going to say that Cincinnati matches up well and that they are going to play better than people expect, and that, and everyone has pretty much been saying the same thing, which is they're going to play better than you expect, and it's going to be a close game until the fourth quarter, and then Alabama will pull away and win. And that may very well be what happens, but I don't think so. I think Alabama's going to go in there breathing fire, and I think that they're going to get the lead early, and they're never going to come close to relinquishing it. It's going to be one of those situations where it's like the big brother fighting the little brother, and he grabs him by the head and keeps him at arm's length, and, little brother keeps swinging, but he can't get past the reach of the big brother because he's got, longer arms, and that's just what's going to happen in this game. I feel like I'm very excited, though, about the prospect of seeing some of the younger wide receivers get in there because of John Mechie being gone. I'm feeling great about the defensive side of the ball because, we lost Job in practice a week after the SEC championship game, Josh Jobe, and he's one of our most experienced quarterbacks. But he's also a guy that, you see him get burned probably more than shutting down there at the corner position. And in his, replacement, we've got Jalen Armour-Davis, who I think is probably a better talent there at corner than Jobe anyway. You never want to lose players, and you want to have as much depth as you possibly can. But, I feel like we may have traded up with Jalen Armour-Davis, and we've still got DeMarco Hellams, and I think Hellams he's, in my opinion, the best cornerback on Alabama, him and Kool-Aid McKinstry. And so, I think we're going to have the 3 best cornerbacks we have on our roster. You've obviously got Malachi Moore and Brian Branch are still back there, and Daniel Wright's a good option as well. So the back end should be shored up, and all of these guys, the injuries, even on the other side with Mechie, if Alabama had to play a game the following week after that, then those would have been big problems. But I think the fact that they've had an entire month to get everybody up to speed, and everybody's had plenty of practice reps in the roles that they're going to be in for this game, so there shouldn't be any problems. Alabama is not going to have any excuses going into this one against Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati, they've played good defense through the year, and they've got a good dynamic quarterback in Ritter. He's no Johnny Manziel or Deshaun Watson or anything like that, but he's a good quarterback. And I've heard that they've got some NFL talent on their lines, but one or two guys that might be drafted in later rounds is a far cry from Alabama's got probably three guys on both sides of their lines that are going to go to the NFL in the first or second rounds. I mean, that's just the way things are these days. And everything, any sort of good point that you can make about Cincinnati always has to be met with an asterisk, because they're not playing the same level of competition as the Power 5 programs. Yeah, they've got their win over Notre Dame, but I mean, how great is Notre Dame really? Their schedule was pretty lackluster if you look at it from top to bottom. So that being said, I feel like this is just, Alabama is going to make this whatever kind of game they want to make this. And if they wanted to go in and win this one 52-17 or something like that, they probably could. But I don't think, if you look at the history of how Alabama handles their semifinal games, with the exception of that first year when they had to play the Urban Meyer Ohio State squad, and maybe in 2017 they had a little bit of a different outlook because they were number 4 and they had to play the number 1 team, Clemson. As it turns out, Clemson was completely exposed with Kelly Bryant as their quarterback that year. But for the most part, Alabama is the number 1 seed going into the playoffs, and their first semifinal game is usually against the team that everyone has question marks about. And Notre Dame last year, the last time they were in the Cotton Bowl, it was the Michigan State team that they railroaded 38-0. I don't expect a 38-0 against Cincinnati, mainly because defenses just aren't what they used to be. And ours isn't going to be able to shut down teams. Well, maybe it's not so much that defenses aren't what they used to be, but offenses are just, they have the benefit of too many rules, and guys are becoming prodigious at the things that offensive players do at a young age. And so offenses, which used to be kind of timing based, and everybody wanted a great defense because they traveled better and they were, speed is always more consistent. But I feel like offensive players now are just so much better than they used to be, that idea of not being able to count on your offense to be as consistent as it used to be is just, that's not the case anymore. Offenses are pretty consistent these days, especially if you've got great skill guys. And Cincinnati they just don't have the juice from the looks of it to me. And I feel like the way this one will go is Alabama will be very businessman-like. This is a business trip, and I don't, and they're certainly not trying to impress anybody with scores, and they're not trying to embarrass anybody. But so I feel like they're going to come out on fire, and Alabama will get a 14-point lead pretty quickly. And like I said, they're just gonna hold them off at that point. I think that Alabama's running game, we're probably going to see more out of the running game this year than we have since much earlier in the season. I mean, Alabama's running game has been pretty well held in check for the whole last month and a half of the season. And I mean, even in the SEC championship game, they only got 125 yards, I think. Expect them to get way more than that. We'll be seeing a lot of Brian Robinson, and hopefully a lot of some other backup guys, Trey Sanders, and I know that they were using Kennedy back there a little bit, so hopefully we'll see some new blood back there at running back, and they will control the game after they get the big lead. And at the end of the first quarter, should be 14-0, and I feel like Alabama will add another touchdown before the half, and somewhere along the way Cincinnati will probably get a field goal. So I'm looking at a 21-3 halftime score. Obviously Alabama in the lead in that. Now I do think that Ritter and Cincinnati will push back a couple of times in the second half and probably draw the score back to 11 points, a 1.5 score lead for Alabama. It'll never get, the gap will never go lower than that. And so I feel like they'll come out and score in the second half early, and it'll make it 21-10, and then Alabama will promptly answer that to make it 28-10, and then I think that Ritter will come back and draw it to 11 points again and make it 28-17. But then that'll probably be the end of their scoring, and I think Alabama will score another touchdown either late in the third or early in the fourth quarter, and then they will, as Nick Saban says, they're going to just take the air out of the game at that point, and then you'll see even more of Brian Robinson and Kennedy and Trey Sanders and maybe some other guys that have gotten some work back there at running back moving forward in that game. And I believe that they'll probably tack on another field goal to just go ahead and make it a 21-point lead, and that'll be your final score. 38-17 Alabama over the Cincinnati Bearcats. And we're obviously very excited to see that game come up, and be on the lookout for the Georgia-Michigan preview, which will be coming to you soon. Thank you.